Hey everybody, I'm Mel Zabecki. I'm the Arkansas State Archeologist, and I'm here for a final lab video to thank you, first of all, for watching all the lab videos. Michelle is actually behind the camera today, but she's the one that's been doing all the spearheading of all these different lab videos and discussions about all the different things that go on with archaeological collections. This last one is to bring it all home and talk about the ethics of curating archaeological collections. So you probably know that once stuff is dug out of the ground, we have to put it somewhere. And that requires a lot of space, a lot of money, and a lot of time in the beginning and then actually through the process of curation. So right now I'm actually standing in an aisle of the University of Arkansas Museum storage facility. And we at the Arkansas Archaeological Survey share space, share curation space with the museum. And so part of the museum that I'm standing in, especially, we curate all of the different artifacts that are coming out of all the different excavations throughout all time in Arkansas. And we're not the only collection facility that actually curates stuff from Arkansas. There's a lot of other places, like the Forest Service has their own curation facilities. The national parks have their own curation facilities. The Department of Transportation have some places as well. So this very vast room actually doesn't contain all of the artifacts from Arkansas. So when things come out of the ground or when people donate collections to us, we first have to identify where they're from. And if it comes straight out of the ground from excavations, everything, as you saw from lab work, has to be watched and identified and labeled and and separated out, and all kinds of special studies get done on it. But then afterwards, we don't put stuff back in the ground. We leave stuff here in the museum for future researchers to come and visit and do extra kinds of research looking at different parts of different collections. So we need to be able to know where everything is. We need to have everything really well labeled. We need to know what we have so that future researchers can use it and it doesn't just get lost in the stacks, right? So there's lots of work that goes into it. But then as things are sitting here for years and years and decades, there's a lot of work that actually winds up happening again in the lab where we pull the boxes out and bring everything to curation standards because things change over the years. About 20 years ago, we were still using really kind of not cheap, but plastic bags to curate the artifacts that are now starting to disintegrate. So we're actually having to go back through collections and resort things and reorganize stuff and bring everything up to curation standards, which you can imagine takes a lot of time, but also actually takes quite a bit of money. So we actually go through, tens of thousands of dollars of materials that we get from grants from different places to sort of refurbish the collections and make sure that they're safe and again, available for future researchers to look at. So I mentioned a minute ago about people also donate stuff to us. Now, there were lots of collections done when there was lots of agriculture in the 20s and 30s in Arkansas, and there are folks that have giant collections of pottery and stuff. And nowadays, the family members are starting to pass away, and lots of folks find items in attics of relatives and even are knowing about these things and don't really know what to do with those. So it's not only professional archaeologists that are leaving their stuff here. It's also collectors and just regular citizens that are also dropping off collections. And oftentimes they're very important collections as long as we know where everything is from. So there are people that collect that, we don't necessarily know exactly where that stuff is from, but, other folks do locate where all the artifacts are from, and that's very, very helpful to us. So if you think about it, it just takes a ton of space and a ton of time and a ton of money to do any sort of collection. So we try, actually nowadays, archaeology is turning back into the museum as opposed to going out into the field. We like to focus more on the stuff that's already been excavated because the more we excavate, the more place and the more money that we use. So if we're already, we already have a bunch of collections that haven't gone through the modern techniques of lab analysis, we want to do that before we start compiling other collections. Because what's really happening here, y'all, is that most of these objects were made and created by people that came thousands or even hundreds of years ago And we want to respect the living descendants of these people. Either the American Indians or the African Americans or any other group of people that left this stuff behind. We want to respect the descendants of these folks by keeping their cultural history as safe as we possibly can. So we want to take care of these artifacts, and we want to take care of the collections as best as we can. But again, if we keep adding to the collections, it's kind of an ethical responsibility that we spend more time and more money to keep everything going, but it's a really hard thing to do. So we just want to make you really aware that even though all this stuff is very, very interesting science, it's also an ethical concern that we have to protect everybody's cultural history and the materials that they made and left behind. I'm standing in one shelf or one aisle of 39 aisles just on one side of the museum. There's also lots of other collections in here. But all these Rubbermaid boxes are absolutely, this one's heavy, are absolutely full of artifacts. And it goes on for a long ways. So you can see that all these shelves are collapsed, and the way that we access them is on a rolling system that we roll and to access the other side. So the thing about this is a very beautiful modern museum with a great curation. It's kind of noisy, and I don't know if you notice feedback or noise in the background, but there's a lot of heating and ventilation systems going on to keep all the humidity control and everything in order to keep these artifacts safe as well. This museum has only been here for 20 years. All of these collections used to be at various places on the University of Arkansas campus. And the move, I actually got to see part of it. And the move was a feat of, I don't even know what. It was a terrible thing to move. So if you think about collections having to move, that's also another huge responsibility that we have as people that take care of things like this. So again, we try not to add any more to the collections that we have to because it's just a giant bit of work. So I hope you kind of gained a little bit more appreciation for all the stuff that we curate, and that you learned a lot about the science of archaeology through this lab series. Thanks so much. Oh, also one other thing I forgot. If you are interested in lab work or learning about, taking more control of these, understanding the curation a little bit more, do contact your local archaeologist. It can be found on archeology.uark.edu. And there's a clickable map that will bring you to your local archaeologist in your county. So again, thanks, and we hope to see you soon.